You know, sometimes we dream about being in paradise. I have a new film for you guys. It is a drama film called A Borrowed Paradise, which is now premiering on YouTube for free, and I will provide the link below for you guys to check out this film. But what were my thoughts on this film? Well, stick around and let's talk about it. A widowed single father struggles to raise his child alone. Derrick's son, Theo, endures his father's drunk and dangerous behavior. The film stars Katan Sosnovec, Scott Menzies-Ricky Dedola, Felicich-Ricky, Cynthia and Kathy Grady, and was directed by Peter Dorn-Revlin. So when Peter Dorn-Revlin asked me to check out his new film, A Borrowed Paradise, I was really intrigued to see what he was going to do with this film, as it is a drama film, and the last film that I reviewed by him was a science fiction action film called Dust Angel, which was just a year ago, so I was very interested to see what he would come up with in this new film. This film, it really shows a dysfunctional family. You have a father named Derrick and a son named Theo. They don't get along very well because the father is very abusive. Theo, he just doesn't really know what to do. He's having to suffer all this abuse. Verbally, his father will call him names. For instance, when they're practicing multiplication, he calls him an idiot and he calls him all these different names. When he's drunk, he just doesn't know what he's saying, and he's just really falling apart. He doesn't have a job, and they don't know what they're going to do for money, and they're really poor. And unfortunately, this is a really real life situation that can happen to a lot of people in real life. I really connected in the fact that this is something that could really happen to someone. I don't necessarily know anybody that had to deal with this in their life. I do know in my family, alcoholism is something that really does run in the family. So I've never really been a big drinker, but I have seen the effects of someone that has been drunk and doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't know what they're saying, and it's just a really bad combination. So those kinds of things that I have experienced in my life, I really connected with the father when he is calling his son all these different names. And then the fact that he's actually hitting his son, and his son walks around with a black eye. It really does show that this son is really suffering and he doesn't know what to do. Losing their mother to a fire and then really having not much and just living in a trailer. It's really hard to really concentrate on life. And really the only thing that he really has going for him, as he does have a friend named Ricci, so he'll go off and talk to him and go explore like nature and stuff. And this film does have some really good cinematography. There's some really good shots with nature, especially on a hill, and it shows like a river and such like that. That was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing the cinematography in the forest. They did a really good job of really capturing that. So props to Peter Dorn-Revlin for actually capturing real life nature shots. I always will praise anybody that can get that on camera. I did like how the director actually showed flashbacks as to how Theo's mother was and how her condition was up until the fire that actually happened. It definitely shows a family that never really was connecting that well and had a lot of problems, as the mother is shown taking these different pills. So you can tell that she has some type of drug problem, and you can really tell that both mother and father, they don't get along very well, and there was probably abuse in that relationship as well. It tries to reflect on the father, and the father tries to reflect on his past life. One of the interesting things that was brought up is the fact that his father actually was an abuser as well, and he had some alcohol problems as well. So this continues in a cycle fashion, and unfortunately that is something that holds true, as a lot of people, when they get in these dysfunctional families, unfortunately, it's learned behavior and it's learned from generation to generation, so it keeps getting passed on. So it's one of those things where you have to break the chain to not be like someone that you've seen do such things. And I think that's probably the hardest thing for people to do in a situation like this, because you really need to get the help to actually get off drinking so much or doing drugs. And I think a lot of people are really afraid to really look and reflect on themselves. But if I had to give any criticisms for this movie as far as negatives, there are only a couple. The first thing is the audio. Parts of the audio is a little bit quieter than others, and some of it is a little bit louder than others. Maybe it was the settings on my TV, but for some reason there were parts where it was a little bit more quieter and other parts where it was a little bit louder. So I had to adjust the audio on my TV TV a little bit. Because it's not a really long film, there are certain things that you want to see kind of develop a little bit more, or see what happens to said character a little bit more. So because this is only a 45-minute film, we don't get to explore everything within the character as what is going to happen next. You kind of get a little bit of glimpse of certain consequences of certain actions, but not necessarily what happens, particularly moving forward. So I think that would be a negative. But of course, with a shorter film like this, you're going to want a little bit more. So I think in that aspect, I definitely wanted a little bit more and a little bit longer length time to really kind of develop certain things that were happening, as we get a good glimpse and a good wrap up of what is going on. But there could have been a little bit more if there was a little bit more length in the movie itself. And I also wouldn't have mind to have a little bit more glimpse of Theo in the mind of how he was feeling. It seemed like throughout this film, he was just very numb to everything happening. He's trying to get over this loss of his mother, and then his father is beating him and calling him an idiot. He's suffering this verbal abuse as well. And I felt like he has trouble really kind of latching on to his friend and really telling him everything that's going on, because there is that afraid of what would happen if he tells this friend of what is going on. So he has that escapism to actually hang out with this kid, but at the same time, he can't tell him everything he's feeling. And I wish that we would have got a little bit more inside the mind of him, because we do explore the father actually reflecting on himself. But I wish that Theo had a little bit more reflecting on himself as well in the situation that he's in. But we don't get a lot of that. So I would say that would be a negative as well. But other than that, I enjoyed this film. I think it is a solid film for what it is. It's a story that needed to be told, as this is something that happens quite frequently today, unfortunately. I would give a score of this film a 3 out of 5, and I think it's worth a watch. I will put a link in the description for you guys to check it out. It's completely free. If you guys do check it out, let me know in the comments what you thought about this film. Thank you guys for checking out this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.